Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris here, Overtime Athletes. For today's video, I wanted to address a question I got from our elite coaching group. So one of the coaches asked me what deadlift variation between the sumo, trap bar, and conventional deadlift is best for athletes. And the way I want to address this is I kind of want to go through each of them. First, you got to understand when it comes to deadlift or any movement for that matter, they're neither good nor bad. I like to think of movements as tools, just like you would have in your toolbox. A hammer or a screwdriver is neither good nor bad. It's just dependent on what's best to get the job done based on the actual job, right? So when I look at the tools or the movements, I look at what stimulus are we trying to apply that's going to transfer over to that specific athlete, that's going to support them in performing those high velocity, high explosive movements that they perform on the field or court, all right? So now that that's said, let's go ahead and address all three. Now, you got the trap bar deadlift, you have the conventional, and you have the sumo. Now, between the three, I'm just gonna flat out tell you that me personally, I like to, across the board with my team sport athletes, typically focus on a trap bar deadlift over the other two. The other two, I usually typically like to perform more as a supplemental strength movement or our secondary compound movement, all right? And that is dependent on the actual athlete. The reason why I love the trap bar deadlift is because when you're developing posterior chain strength, I find that developing absolute strength in the trap bar deadlift is going to transfer over to most sports. Not only that, it's the athlete is the least amount compromised, and what I mean by that is a conventional is going to place more stress on the erectors because the athlete is hinging forward more. When I'm performing a trap bar deadlift, the torso can be a little bit more upright, and we place a little bit more stress on the quads and across the knee to be able to perform that. So it's actually more of a hybrid between your squat and your deadlift, okay? So the athlete can perform and learn the movement typically a little bit easier, and the spine isn't as compromised. Now, another reason why I prefer the trap bar deadlift over the conventional is simply because the trap bar deadlift, going hand in hand with the athlete not being compromised and it being a more efficient movement, research has shown that there's higher peak velocities and peak power. So if I'm moving down that force velocity curve and not working absolute strength, right, and working a little bit more speed, strength, speed, I can utilize a trap bar deadlift to get the athlete pulling that weight a lot faster, right? And when you're doing that, you're not as compromised again like you are with the hinge movement, and it aligns a little bit more with how they perform, say, a bilateral jump. Now, when it comes to conventional, if I'm building an athlete up, I think of your RDLs, your conventionals, great for an athlete because now we can really build all those intrinsic muscles down the spine to be able to support that load and really focus on the glutes and hamstrings working. Now, if an athlete is weak in the hamstrings, I might tip the scale towards a conventional a little bit more. Now, as far as sumo deadlift, the reason why I love sumo deadlift with baseball athletes or any athletes that need to display lateral force is because it supports an athlete in developing just that, right? A baseball athlete needs to be able to throw, needs to be able to hit and display lateral force. So if I can go extremely wide, I can go outside my shoulder width, and I can get the athlete to spread the floor from this wider range, right? You're not focusing on more of a linear glute max. You're focusing actually more on that glute med, which displays that lateral force. It's just across the board. If I was to take one movement out of my bag and utilize it for all athletes, it would be the trap bar because it's something I can really develop in them pretty easily and get them to a certain standard of absolute strength. Again, no movement is necessarily bad. It's just dependent on the athlete and the different variables they face when it comes to their sport, okay? So I hope that helps. I'll talk to you guys next time. Right, as a corrective, you're gonna go iso step downs.